He said, yo, 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 what's up, my guys? So today we are going to reacting to a congressional hearing about immigrant status. And as you can see down at the bottom of the video, families of people killed by illegal immigrants testified before Congress. Without further ado, let's get into it. And yeah, this is 3 hours long, but we not about to be here no doggone 3 hours. Mm-hmm.
Inconceivable that such a reckless and dangerous policy as these so-called sanctuary laws could be supported by a major political party. But as we will see again today, that's the current position of the Democratic Socialist Party. Not a fringe element, but the actual elected representatives of that party. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses, and I now yield to the ranking member for her opening statement.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Let me start by offering my deepest condolences to you, Mrs. Gorman, and to you, Mr. Abraham, for the loss of your children. As a parent myself, I can think of no greater loss, and I appreciate you being here to share their stories and their lives with us. Unfortunately, this hearing is...
Yo, I gotta stop. Where's the here's what's being said in the chat. Where's the hearing where the victims were killed by other American citizens? Just wondering how big that would be. So my thing is, my response to that, this is CNN. For honestly, I would say, yeah, it would behoove you to deal with that problem beforehand, rather than to bring in the whole entire third world country and add, or the entire global south, that would do nothing but add to the problem that already exists. So if we're worried about Americans killing Americans, how about we close our borders and focus on that rather than to have the global south come through the border and add to the problem? Because at the end of the day, people kill people regardless of nationality, ethnicity, race, and gender. So let's be real about that. Let's deal with with American problems first, and then decide whether or not we want to integrate the global south into America. Because you integrate the global south to America, they ain't gonna do nothing but add more to the problem that already exists. They're gonna bring their cultural ideology, their way of life, their religion into a country that is not specific to their origin. That is not specific to their origin. That's pretty much what they're all going to do. If Americans are already having problems within their own country, let's focus on Americans first and then others. That would make sense. It makes no sense to turn around and bring in and integrate the whole entire global south when you already have problems that Americans have to face with each other on a daily basis. Let's fix those problems first. Because at the end of the day, American or non-American, people kill people regardless of nationality, regardless of gender, regardless of race and skin color. But I digress.
It's the fourth time in this committee that we've had a hearing on sanctuary cities, the fourth time. And there's many other things that we could be doing other than this. I would have loved to have had some hearings on the unconstitutionality of the president's executive order on eliminating birthright citizenship. This is something that the Supreme Court just ruled today in a 6-3 majority was unconstitutional. And yet this was an executive order that caused so much fear and trauma across the country. We could have been discussing that, but we haven't. Instead, we have had this.
First of all, the discussion of birthright citizenship always have been a discussion amongst politicians. It just so happened that Trump is the one that tried to do something about it, and he did it through executive order. Because if you go through the doggone Senate, this is what you're going to have to deal with. Congress sitting there slow foot. But birthright citizenship has always been a discussion amongst politics, amongst both parties, to be exact, for decades and decades and decades and decades. Specifically, Chinese birth tourism. So this is not the discussion of birthright citizenship. It's nothing new. This discussion of birthright citizenship has always been amongst politics for decades. This is nothing new. This shit started all the way back in the 1900s. This is nothing new whatsoever. The discussion of birthright citizenship has always been a discussion. Since the time that it was implemented in the first place, in which it was implemented to reverse and overturn the infamous Dred Scott decision of 1857, which basically stated that citizenship should not be determined by soil, but by blood. That was the infamous Dred Scott decision. If you look that up, Dred Scott was a slave, a black man that was a slave trying to sue the federal government. And I believe it was over slavery and was denied for the simple fact that he was not deemed eligible for citizenship, which created the birthright citizenship, aka the 14th Amendment. This is where you get that. This is where you get that. The talking point of it being for descendant of slaves and not for foreigners. So this has always been a discussion in the first place. That's always been a discussion. But here's the thing that Jayapal is doing. She's changing the subject of the simple fact that some of these sanctuary policies that have been implemented have been harmful towards other people. That's what she's trying to change the subject. That's the reason why she's trying to change the subject to birthright citizenship. Because she don't really want to come to the conclusion that, oh, our sanctuary policies have hurt people in this country.
Series of hearings that are designed to attack the very trust policies that research has shown over and over again have actually saved lives and kept communities safer by maintaining the.
And that is an absolute lie. Because some of these sanctuary policies allow some of these immigrants that have killed and committed crimes to be put back on the streets, Meanwhile, Americans who have done the same thing don't get the same type of treatment. Do not get the same type of treatment, or rarely get the same type of treatment within these sanctuary cities.
The necessary and important division between the enforcement of federal civil immigration laws and the enforcement of local criminal laws. This division ensures that people don't fear law enforcement who try to enforce immigration law, and that community members will actually come forward and be witnesses in these prosecutions to report crimes when they happen. The Trump administration, however, has ignored decades of research and has done the exact opposite. They've blurred the lines between immigration enforcement and law enforcement so much.
That is a bald-faced lie. You guys did that because of your fear-mongering tactics and your policies that prohibit police officers from local police officers from working with ICE. Which then not only turned around and put ICE officers in danger, but also put illegal immigrants and immigrants in danger as well too. So no, that is a bald-faced lie that she just told.
Much that they essentially no longer exist. They've destroyed trust in communities and created fear and even deported witnesses to important crimes so that then those crimes cannot be effectively prosecuted. On top of that, the Trump administration has diverted over 28,000 officers from their critical law enforcement activities to work on immigration enforcement instead. This has led to non-immigration criminal.
Because you guys prohibited local police officers from working with federal ICE agents. See, this is what they don't want to tell you. Them same policies that Mayor Jacob Fry over there in Minnesota did, that prohibited local law enforcement from working with federal ICE agents. Yeah, she ain't gonna talk about that. She ain't gonna talk about that at all.
Prosecutions falling to their lowest point in decades. Gun prosecutions have fallen more than 10%. Investigators worked 33% fewer hours on child exploitation cases. Nearly 1 in every 5 FBI agents has been reassigned to arrest immigrants instead of conducting complex criminal investigations of corruption, espionage, terrorism, cyber attacks, and transnational gangs.
This is coming from the same person whose party allowed Tim Walz to get away with corruption and fraud in his state. And he told whistleblowers, and he turned around and targeted those whistleblowers along with the state attorney general. But now all of a sudden that Trump is in power, we're going to sit here and talk about corruption. We're going to sit here and talk about corrupt politics and all this and that and the third. Come on now, stop it. This is the same woman that advocated for reparations for immigrants. The same woman that advocated for reparations for immigrants. Meanwhile, you got foundational Black Americans that have been asking for reparations across the country for decades. And now that Trump is in power, now you want to sit here and talk about corruption. Where were you when we was talking about corruption and fraud in Minnesota? Hmm? Where were you when we talk about Gavin Newsom and his billionaire fraud scheme with the speed rail, with the high speed rail in California that has never been finished? Hmm? But now all of a sudden, you got no problems calling out corruption.
All things that are necessary to keep Americans safe. Similarly, around 1 in every 2 Drug Enforcement Agency agents, 2 in 3 Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives agents, and 1 in 5 U.S. Marshals have all been reassigned to immigration enforcement. From within ICE, thousands of Homeland Security investigations, HSI agents, are focused on immigration enforcement instead of their stated mission of combating transnational crimes.
And when we talking about Homeland Security, they deal with terrorism. They deal with all forms of national security threat, including immigration. They don't just deal with transnational crimes. They deal with all forms of national threats, of national security threats, including immigration. That is exactly why the Department of Homeland Security was created in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks. Specifically for not just transnational crimes, but to also handle federal immigration as well too.
Crimes such as drug and weapons smuggling, child exploitation, and human trafficking. During the immigration
Which all happens at the border. Which all happens at the border. Do y'all not see what this goofy woman is doing? Deflect, 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 deflect. Everything that she's talking about right now consists of what happens at the border of the United States. How do those drugs get into the country? How does human trafficking get into the country? Through the border of the United States and immigration within the United States. What are we talking about?
enforcement surge in Minnesota, federal prosecutions of gun and drug offenses dropped by nearly 90%. 90%. DHS's former chief of staff says that as a result of all of this, our government is, quote, asleep at the wheel and less prepared to stop terrorist attacks than at any point since 9/11. For what? For what? What are the results of that? Arrests of immigrants without a single criminal conviction surged by 770%. And these immigrants of all immigration statuses get locked up or deported or disappeared at tremendous cost to you, the taxpayers, and to the traumatized communities that are left behind. That's not a public safety agenda, safety disaster. So let's just remind people about what this immigration enforcement strategy of this administration has led to. Under Donald Trump, ICE doubled in size. Instead of funding Americans' health care or housing or childcare, Republicans poured over $210 billion. $210 billion.
And instead of putting American issues first, you guys spilled over $100 billion trying to basically cater to immigrants, people who are not even from this country. You guys turned around and you want to throw federal funding to ACA subsidies, who you claim is a broken system that can be fixed, right?
Dollars into ICE and CBP. DHS officers killed 2 U.S. citizens in cold blood in Minnesota. Have we had a hearing on that?
Yeah,
No, we haven't.
because guess what those 2 American citizens were doing? Impeding on federal law enforcement investigations. One had a gun on him. The other one basically damn near ran over a federal officer.
They beat and detained countless U.S. citizens for exercising First Amendment rights and broke down doors without a warrant in violation of the Fourth Amendment. ICE has imprisoned 400,000 people just in the interior of this country since Trump came in. Parents, children, military veterans, U.S. citizens, people on valid visas, and people who have never committed a single crime. The private prison companies who incarcerate these people get massive profits. They turn around and then contribute to Republicans and Trump's campaigns while maintaining the most horrific conditions inside the prisons that have led to a record 51 deaths in ICE detention just since President Trump took office. So what does all this do for Americans? It hurts them. Their communities get torn apart, their kids lose friends, their businesses suffer.
And I guarantee you the same thing happened up under Obama, and y'all said nothing about it. Y'all didn't even stop him from deporting people. And the same thing happened up under Obama. Matter of fact, 56, not 51, 56. Did you stop him from deporting people? No. You allowed him to continue on. Which is why he still has the title for being the chief of deportations. Till this day, Donald Trump hasn't even hit his numbers. He tried to, but he hasn't even gotten there.
From lack of workers. And guess what? Americans actually lose jobs due to harsh immigration enforcement. The Brookings Institution looked at increased ICE enforcement in 86 metro areas in red and blue states and found that up to 297,000 American-born workers have lost their jobs as a result of ICE's increased enforcement. That all needs to stop.
That's a damn lie. That's a damn lie. Most of these layoffs are coming from tech and innovation and AI automation. So what she's saying is a damn lie.
Hearings should be on how public safety has been hurt thanks to this administration's policies, or on holding people who killed and detained American citizens accountable, or on the numerous times that this administration denies due process in violation of our Constitution. That is what the American...
Simply because the people that were deporting already had deportation orders up under Biden's administration.
American people want not more of what we're doing today. More than 60% of Americans now disapprove of Donald Trump's immigration policies. Americans want Trump and Republicans to focus on lowering grocery prices, stop giving tax breaks to billionaires while stripping health care from tens of millions of Americans. But just like...
Which is the same thing that your party does as well, too. Let's not forget, Mark Cuban, a multi-billionaire, Elon Musk, was a Democrat before he turned over to Republican. You have a billionaire donor class that is, if not the same size as the Republican Party donor class, even bigger. So stop it. You guys do the same thing that you call out Republicans for.
like Trump has insulted Americans by refusing to sign the most consequential bipartisan housing bill in a generation, calling it unimportant and a, quote, yawn. He's insulting Americans by continuing these harsh immigration policies that hurt safety and hurt opportunity for all.
And what do you think you're doing by calling Americans racist and fascists and saying that this is a fascist country? Do you not think that some Americans would take that as being offensive?
All Americans. Republicans instead want to coerce states and localities into doing the federal government's job, despite numerous court orders that have declared immigration detainers unlawful violations of the Fourth Amendment. They want to force local police departments to prioritize their limited resources on immigration enforcement instead of.
They have limited resources because you advocated for defunding the police. Had you not did any of that and did not prohibit them from working with federal law enforcement, this wouldn't even be a problem in the first place. So you brought this up on yourself and your own constituents by using fear-mongering tactics to go against Trump and the Trump administration.
Of encouraging all community members to come forward and report crimes without worrying about theirs or a loved one's immigration status. I hope that this committee does hold hearings on the unconstitutionality of this administration's policies. But certainly when Republicans are no longer in office after November, we will do just that in the majority. I look forward to hearing from all of our witnesses today. And
in other words, they're going to open the borders and let the third world country come. And let the global South come in and take over the country. Meanwhile, they're gonna say that you're racist for not allowing these people to come in this country. People who have drastically shown that they do not appreciate America for where it's at, what it has become, and has drastically shown that they have no allegiance to this country in the first place. And if you call them out, you are a racist. If you wave your flag around them, you are a racist. You are a racist and a fascist. They turn around and sit there and do what she's doing right now, basically saying that Trump is using fear-mongering tactics. But what did you do when Trump got into office and started enforcing federal immigration? You turned around and used fear-mongering tactics. You prohibited local police officers from working with federal ICE agents. You then turned around and said that everybody who supports deportations and enforcing federal immigration laws are racist, bigots, and fascists. You brought this up onto yourself and your own constituents because you wanted to make this thing about race. But now you're going to turn around and say that Trump is using fear-mongering tactics when you've been using fear-mongering tactics against him and his administration for the past 3 damn years that he's been in office. And enforcing federal immigration. Now you want to call him out on the same thing that you've been doing.
And I yield back.
Appreciate the warning. The gentlelady yields back. The chair is now pleased to recognize the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't want to coerce anyone. We just want to stop the stupid policy of sanctuary jurisdiction that led to the tragedies that these families are going to testify and talk about today. The gentlelady from Washington, the ranking member, said this is the 4th hearing on sanctuary jurisdiction. I'll have 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll have whatever amount of hearings it takes to stop a policy that is so ridiculous. Because understand, never forget what sanctuary jurisdiction is in the simplest of terms. Politicians tell local law enforcement, like Sheriff Redmond, don't work with federal law enforcement in enforcing federal law. That is dumb.
Mayor Brandon Johnson did the same thing, and Mayor Jacob Fry in Minnesota, and the governor of California. They all prohibited local law enforcement from working with federal ICE agents. If they had not done that, this wouldn't even be a problem in the first place. Because the way that ICE agents work, that not all of them know or can map out and go in and find these immigrants. It is the local police officers that know the streets of those states. But because you guys prohibited local police officers from working with ICE agents, guess what ICE has to do? They now have to go into these doggone neighborhoods and look for these people themselves, which puts not only ICE agents in danger, but also law-abiding immigrants in danger. Because local police officers have the database. They can track them down. ICE agents do not know or cannot map out the streets by themselves. But when you prohibit local law enforcement from working with federal ICE agents, guess what ICE has to do? Go into these unknown streets and go and pick these people up off the streets. If you had not prohibited local law enforcement from working with federal ICE agents, this would not be a problem. You want to know how I know this would not be a problem? Because you did exactly that when Obama was deporting people. You allowed local law enforcement to work with federal ICE agents, which is why we did not see this much of a big problem like we do now. And that is a documented fact. And if you want to talk about the treatment of immigrants in these detainment centers, I can sit up here and pull up a full-blown documentary of Obama's immigration policies and how he had those immigrant children sleeping on the ground in cages. Sleeping on the ground in cages. That wasn't Trump. That was Obama. That wasn't Trump's federal immigration laws. That was Obama's federal immigration laws. So if we want to talk about the treatment of immigrants in these detainment centers, okay. You want to talk about the 51 deaths? Y'all had 56 deaths up under Obama and his federal immigration laws. And not only that, there's a documentary that is specifically based on his federal immigration laws. And he had immigrant children sleeping on the concrete floor in cages. Trump's federal immigration law was the Remain in Mexico policy. Like, bruh, like these people act like Americans was born just yesterday, as if we don't have a clear memory of how bad their federal immigration laws was up under not only just Joe Biden and Obama. Because Joe Biden lost over 300,000 immigrant children.
And it's not only dumb, it results in bad things happening to families. That's why we're having the fourth hearing. And like I said, we'll do whatever. And my guess is the chairman is willing to do whatever amount of hearings it takes to get our legislation across the finish line. Our sanctuary jurisdiction shut down.
I'm hoping that somebody asks this hard-ass question right here. What happens if you have an illegal immigrant that turns around and commits a crime against a law-abiding citizen that is an immigrant of this country? What happens if you have an illegal immigrant commit a crime against an immigrant that is law-abiding? What happens then? I hope somebody asks that question. And I hope somebody has the right answer to it.
Down Act of 2026. And understand this as well. It is a systematic, I've said this every single hearing all 4 times. It is a systematic plan of the left's. Step 1, they let in 10 million illegal migrants during the Biden administration. Oh, no border, just let in 10 million people. Step 2, create sanctuary jurisdictions all over this country. 18 cities, 11 states, 3 large counties, like Fairfax County, where the prosecutor there gives special deals to migrants who commit crimes, unequal treatment to Americans, frankly.
That is a documented fact. You can look this up. Google will be your best friend if you learn how to do your research. Google will be your best if you just learn to do your research before you just believe what any doggone party says. I swear and wholeheartedly, I will tell you, Google will be your best friend. If you do your research and don't just go based off of what any party says, Google will be your best friend.
Let in 10 million, create sanctuary jurisdictions, 18 cities, 11 states, 3 counties, and the District of Columbia. And then step 3, don't pay the guys who do the enforcement. Don't pay ICE. They did that for 110 days. It wouldn't fund the guys who do the enforcement. That is their systematic plan. And that you add the 4th step in, these crazy prosecutors, soft on crime prosecutors, who when an illegal migrant commits a crime, they won't work with federal law enforcement, let the guy back out, and he does bad things. Just ask Mrs. Gorman.
Yeah.
She's going to talk about that. That is what, again, I just cannot fathom why a party would embrace that mindset, that approach. So God bless Chairman McClintock. He's the sponsor of that bill. It's a good piece of legislation. We need it to pass the House, get to the Senate, get to the president and sign it so we can stop this nonsense that has led to such tragic things. With that, I will yield back. And again, I want to thank our witnesses for the work, Sheriff, the work you do, the families who've lost. God bless you. Thank you for being here. It's not easy, I know, but thank you for coming. And I know your member appreciates it, particularly Ms. Gorman, for you being here as well. And with that, I'll yield back to the chairman of the committee.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses for being with us today. I especially want to thank Mr. Abraham and Mrs. Gorman for coming to speak about their beloved daughters who were criminally and savagely stolen away from their families. As a father, I too know the pain and devastation of losing a child, and my heart goes out to you and to your families. Anyone who commits a crime must be held accountable swiftly and completely. And immigrants, whether lawful or undocumented, who commit violent crimes must be deported at the end of their criminal sentences. Furthermore, we must end the polarization and dysfunction in Congress so we can pass comprehensive, common sense immigration reform. We need to make it a whole lot harder for people to enter the United States unlawfully and a whole lot easier to enter the United States legally. Can we agree to an agenda around that? And yet, instead of working with
You already have a pathway to citizenship. It's already on the books. You already have a pathway to citizenship. The only thing you have to do is enforce it. That's it. You already have a pathway to citizenship. The problem is you're not enforcing it. You want these people to be granted amnesty. That is not a pathway to citizenship. You already have a pathway to citizenship right here on the books. The problem is you're not enforcing it. That's why.
With us on basic common sense reforms to make dreamers lawful residents, to
Pathways
fortify the border.
citizenship is that one, they have to be coming here with a purpose. Either they're coming here to work or go to school or to become a citizen of the United States. You already have those things on the books. You already have that on the books. Literally. The problem is you got people in Congress that want to open the borders, and then you got other people in Congress that want to enforce federal immigration and enforce border security. That's clashing with each other. That's the problem. You guys are trying to basically seem like you're for border security, and you're really not.
To expand the categories for admission of lawful immigrants and to make sure DHS and ICE are properly focused on following the law and pursuing their basic self-proclaimed mission of keeping us safe from the worst of the worst. Our colleagues are conducting an endless series of hearings on sanctuary cities. This is our fourth such hearing. And I'm not sure Republicans have even come to any agreement on what they mean when they use that spooky term. Last year, Trump's Department of Homeland Security published a list of nearly 400 counties that it classified as sanctuary jurisdictions. This caused an uproar with dozens of conservative sheriffs across the country. Their counties were named sanctuary jurisdictions simply because they had strong policies on upholding states' rights and rejecting unfunded federal mandates, and strong policies against conscripting state and local officers to execute federal duties. Stunned by this response, DHS removed the list days after it was published because a list of sanctuary jurisdictions defying the feds could not possibly include so many conservative sheriffs from red counties who drew a strict line around on how much of their locally raised tax revenues and resources they should have to spend carrying out the federal government's immigration enforcement agenda and other constitutional responsibilities when the federal government has a budget far larger than they do. Well, this was a telling collision between Republicans and Republicans. For decades, conservatives argued that the federal government could not impose unfunded federal mandates on localities or boss around state and local officials to force them to do the work of federal officers charged with enforcing federal laws. They even succeeded in the Prince case in 1977 to convince a conservative Supreme Court majority to hold that the 10th Amendment invalidated a provision in the Brady Handgun Control Act, which purported to compel sheriffs and police chiefs to conduct background searches on prospective gun buyers. Justice Antonin Scalia found for the majority, a 5-4 majority, that this provision violated the 10th Amendment, which prevents the federal government, he said, from commandeering state and local officers to use their official time and their local resources to implement unfunded federal mandates under the direction of federal officers. Justice Scalia asserted that this constitutional prohibition in the 10th Amendment was categorical. He was unmoved by the heartfelt claims that the failure to integrate local sheriffs and local police into the federal machinery of gun policy enforcement would result in more gun violence, more death, and more injury. The feds must enforce said. So this is precisely the same mistake which I think our friends across the aisle are making here. We've heard from some of the jurisdictions dragooned into Congress on their official time and their official salaries to participate in this endless sequence of repetitive hearings that they would notify, and they do notify federal authorities of when any immigrant prisoner is set to be released from local jail. And if asked, they arrange for them to be picked up and handed over right away to immigration authorities. No jurisdiction has given them a problem about that. But what the ones who've appeared before us say they cannot do is hold such prisoners beyond the length of their judicial sentences for the convenience of federal officials, both because this practice turns state and local officials into de facto federal workers, as Justice Scalia said you can't do, reporting to ICE or the Department of Homeland Security instead of reporting to their own courts, and also because they say, and certainly the people from Virginia who showed up at the last such hearing said, they have no constitutional authority under due process or habeas corpus law to hold prisoners without arrest, prosecution, and conviction. So the position they've taken, which doesn't seem at least to be unreasonable or deranged,
That's simply because you have politicians and mayors and judges who will not enforce immigration, who will not allow them to enforce federal immigration. So, of course, they're taking an alternative route. You guys are making it hard for them to enforce federal immigration. You guys won't partner with them. You too busy political grandstanding for your voter base.
simply, they're very happy to work with the feds to turn people over before their sentences are completed, but after their sentences are completed, they can't hold them. So why are our colleagues so desperate to keep pulling this boogeyman of the sanctuary jurisdictions out of the closet? Well, perhaps it has to do with the fact that they voted to give DHS more than $250 billion to improve immigration enforcement. And America has watched as the Department of Homeland Security has used this staggering pile of money to waste on luxurious private jets for the secretary, complete with bedrooms and bars, on overpriced and ultimately useless industrial warehouses to detain human beings that are now being sold off at a massive loss to the taxpayers, on a glitzy $220 million public relations horseback.
Wait, hold on. Didn't you guys do the same thing up under Biden? Y'all all made money off of letting those illegal immigrants into the country. Y'all made billions of dollars off of letting them people into the country. Did y'all not do the same thing? And then you want to talk about corruption. You want to sit there and you want to lecture them about corruption when you wouldn't even open up, you wouldn't even look into Hunter Biden's laptop. You didn't even want to look into the $9 billion fraud scheme in Minnesota. This is the pot calling the kettle black. The pot calling the kettle black because they did the same thing up under Obama and Joe Biden. They made millions of dollars off of letting the people in. Millions.
Back photo shoot and ad campaign for a glamorous Department of Homeland Security secretary who called the slain citizens Alex Preddy and Renee Good terrorists. MAGA Republicans have done nothing as ICE has abused hundreds of billions of dollars to arrest, beat up, shoot, and even kill American citizens for exercising their First and Second Amendment rights. They've allowed ICE to ignore its duty to keep us safe from the worst of the worst, and instead gone after kids and parents coming home from kindergarten, rape survivors who just finished testifying in court, and volunteers at Catholic church soup kitchens. ICE's indiscriminate and chaotic immigration enforcement.
So let me get this very, very doggone clear about American citizens exercising their First and Second Amendment right. If you are going to a protest armed, you know that there's federal ICE agents that's going to be out there. You know that there's law enforcement that's going to be out there as well too. Why would you show up to a massive protest armed in the first place? Why? And then on top of that, you're going to aggravate and agitate and act aggressively towards law enforcement, which will prompt them to turn around and respond to your aggressiveness towards them. That is the dumbest thing that you can do. Show up to a massive protest armed and then turn around and do things that will agitate police officers, like kicking the back of their doggone car, back of the doggone vehicle that they're riding in, spitting in their face, trying to fight them, trying to intervene when they're making a civil arrest of another protester who is also attacking police officers. And you are armed. You got to be the dumbest person I've ever seen in life to do something like that. I'm going to go up to a massive protest where I know law enforcement is going to be at. Then I'm going to turn around and act a plumb fool and sit there and act aggressively towards law enforcement, knowing that there's a huge chance that I'm going to be arrested. Not only that, you basically interfere with federal law enforcement investigation and arrest. Does that sound like a person that has common sense? No. That sounds like a person that is completely think that they privileged and ain't nothing gonna happen to them, and they super duper dumb. But I digress. Let's keep going.
Has also undermined the ability of state and local prosecutors and law enforcement to keep their own communities safe and to deliver justice to victims of crime. They are deporting crime victims as well as key witnesses and informants without any notice to state or local police and prosecutors. As a result, investigations are being thwarted, criminal trials are being thrown into disarray, and American communities are less safe. House Judiciary Democrats put out a report called Acquitted by Removal: How Trump's Mass Deportation Agenda Abandons Crime Victims and Allows the Perpetrators to Avoid Justice, which I recommend that all of you check out. Not only is DHS not making our communities safer, it's making us worse off. A recent study found that the metro areas most targeted by ICE in both red and blue states had suffered losses of nearly 670,000 jobs, up to 44% of which were held by American citizens. The immigration roundup is profoundly costly to our communities. The administration's attacks on so-called sanctuary jurisdictions are hurting Americans from all walks of life. One can only regard with amazement the fact that rather than own up to this disastrous record, my colleagues are trying to change the subject and blame the failures of the Department of Homeland Security, not on Kristi Noem and her dysfunctional accomplices and successors, but on the state and local jurisdictions, which did not create the problem, have no real power to address it, and are constitutionally protected from being impressed into service, as Justice Scalia said, by an illegal commandeering policy passed by Congress. DHS has 250,000 employees and a budget larger than that of 150 countries on earth. It has over 80,000 sworn law enforcement officers, more than the number of officers in New York, Chicago, LA, Houston, DC, Las Vegas, and Dallas combined. But despite all of that, our colleagues think that state and local jurisdictions should be using their money and their funds to do the Department of Homeland Security job for them. And Dallas combined. But despite all of that, our colleagues think that state and local jurisdictions should be using
Yeah, because obviously you guys are sitting there acting as if you don't know the difference between judiciary and executive. Judiciary does not have no jurisdiction over the executive branch. They don't. They are to enforce the laws of the executive branch.
Their money and their funds to do the Department of Homeland Security job for them. If our colleagues are serious about public safety, they should join us in imposing guardrails on ICE to refocus their energy on going after the worst of the worst and to ensure that they respect the fundamental rights of every U.S. citizen. They should reinvest in public safety programs that the administration has cut, that supported local law enforcement, assisted victims of crime, and gone after organized crime drug traffickers, and they should push back on the president's shocking abuse of the pardon power, which has allowed drug traffickers and international narco dealers and criminal fraudsters to walk free, depriving victims and taxpayers of nearly $2 billion in unmet restitution. Last Congress, we came together to craft a bipartisan border security bill. President Biden agreed to sign it, but then candidate Trump blew up the deal because he wanted a crisis to run on more than he wanted an actual solution. Sadly, since then, our colleagues have been doing more of the same, holding hearing after hearing on the same topic, failing to pass their signature border bill or even their bill to coerce and commandeer sanctuary cities to do their bidding. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today and hope that we can rejoin together in doing the work of the American people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, all other opening statements be included in the record.
Yeah, because I knew this playback was going to slow down. Come on. It's completely frozen. Yeah. I did not even add this on there. Why you have it? So
topic of today's hearing. So I'll begin by recognizing Ms. Miller to introduce Mr. Abraham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to introduce my friend and fellow Illinois resident, Joe Abraham. 1 year ago, Mr. Abraham sat in the House Oversight Committee hearing as Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker defended his administration's sanctuary policies. I had the opportunity to address that committee and question the governor. I will never forget seeing Mr. Abraham in the room, a grieving father.
come on, y'all.
Seeking answers after losing his daughter to a tragedy that was entirely preventable. As he will share with this committee, the Illinois governor's refusal to enforce our nation's immigration laws contributed to the death of his youngest child. Katie Abraham, who has been described by her father as having a beautiful soul and a large personality, was killed in the early hours of January 19th, 2025 by an intoxicated illegal alien who crashed into the car carrying Katie and her friends. Despite unimaginable grief, Joe Abraham chose courage over silence. He has become a powerful advocate, not just for Katie, but for families across America who believe their voices are being ignored, and for the victims whose stories deserve to be heard, and for Americans who expect their government to fulfill the most fundamental responsibility to protect its own citizens. You could not have picked a better witness, Mr. Chairman. Joe will provide this committee with a firsthand account of the consequences of the left's sanctuary policies and why we must never forget its victims.
Hey man, can you share your #1 tip for business success?
You wouldn't have done nothing because you got nothing but weak leadership.
Switch to Monday CRM.
Oh, awesome. Thanks.
Hold up.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. Now recognize Mr. Lawler to introduce Mrs. Gorman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having me at this important hearing. I'm here today to introduce Jessica Gorman. Jessica should not be here today. She should not be testifying before Congress. She should be back in New York with her daughters, Madeline and Sheridan, enjoying a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the summer. But unfortunately, Jessica is here with us today. And she's here because just a few short months ago, her beautiful daughter, Sheridan, was shot and killed in Chicago by an illegal immigrant. I cannot say it loud enough or clear enough, but this nation and this Congress owes you an apology. We are sorry to you, to Tom, and to Madeline. I didn't know Sheridan personally, and that's a tragedy. But I know her family, and I know the Yorktown community. I know that she was a kind and compassionate young woman who cared about her community and had a bright future ahead of us. And I know without a doubt in my mind the incredible things she would have done with her life should she had been given the chance. Her murder was senseless. It should not have happened. Our immigration policies exist for a reason, and they should have been enforced. Sheridan would still be with us today, and Jessica would not have to testify before this panel. Our immigration laws facilitate legal immigration processes to ensure that good, smart people can come into this country, assimilate, and contribute to our communities, while also ensuring that criminals who break the law do not get to stay. Their jobs are made infinitely harder when places like New York and Chicago blatantly disregard existing law and provide safe harbor to criminals. Sanctuary policies
Mr.
are the
Chairman,
reason.
point of order.
why-
This is a
Gentlemen will
statement,
suspend.
not an introduction.
Lady's point is well taken. Gentlemen, please confine his remarks to the introduction.
Thank you.
Back in May of 2023, over 3 years ago, Sheridan's murderer illegally entered the United States. Border Patrol caught him. They apprehended him. But then, because of the Biden administration's ludicrous open border policies, he was released into our country. A month later, he was arrested for shoplifting in Chicago. Under existing law and the law at the time, he should have been deported right then and there. And
Point
if
of order, this
Chicago
is not
were
an
abiding
introduction.
by our federal laws,
Point
you
of
all
order,
should be
this is
ashamed
not
of
an
yourselves.
introduction, it's a speech.
You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Mr.
of
Chairman,
order.
Disgraceful.
Mr. Chairman,
I
we
ask for a
had,
ruling on the
Mother-
point of
But wait a minute. Y'all just let old girl turn around and do the same thing. She wanted it to talk about birthright citizenship and talk about affordability and corruption and all this and that and the third. Y'all just let her do the same thing and didn't say nothing. Because she brought up stuff that didn't have anything to do with what this committee hearing is about. And y'all let her do that. And you didn't say anything. You didn't claim that this was an introduction and not a speech and all this and that and the third. You didn't say nothing. But you let her, but now all of a sudden that he doing it, you get on his case.
point of
We-
order.
we've been-
Here.
Chairman.
Precisely because you have failed to do your job.
Yes,
Mr.
you're
You
ruling.
wonder
Chairman.
why we had 4
Everybody
years,
settle
4
down.
hearings? It's because you don't understand the
gentlemen will
consequence of
suspend.
sanctuary
Mr.
policy.
Chairman,
Gentlemen will
unfortunately, we won't
suspend.
give our approval for people to introduce their constituents if people don't stick to the rules. So I appreciate the chairman's insistence that we stick to the rules and that you have the opportunity to introduce your constituent, which I
Right, and
think you have
introducing
done.
my
So
constituent
thank you very
is-
much, Mr. Lawler and Mr.
is
Chairman.
sharing the
please have
details
committee
of her death.
be in
You may not
order.
want to hear the details. It may be an inconvenience to
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
but these details matter.
The gentleman will suspend. We have an agreement with the minority that the introductions will be introductory only. So if I could just ask for the gentleman to make that introduction and conclude.
Sure. When you send your kid to college, you should be worried about making sure they go to class, or hopefully that they have a nice roommate, or how to help them get a summer internship. Not worried that illegal immigrants are shooting them while they're out with their friends looking at the northern lights. It is shameful that we are here. Not because this is the 4th hearing, but because we need to have 4 hearings to make people understand the real life consequences of the disastrous sanctuary city policies. So while some of my colleagues may not want to hear the truth, the same outrage you feel about Renee Good and Alex Preddy,
Mr.
you should
Chairman,
feel about
would you
Sheridan Gorman
please
and
end
Laken Riley
this-
and every angel
end this
family in
statement?
this country.
I do.
And so now all of a sudden she wants to stop him from talking. But didn't she bring up Alex Preddy and Renee Good too in her soliloquy? So now it's a problem that he bringing it up.
Do feel that outrage?
You do not.
Do you?
Because if you did,
Do
you
you
would
feel?
not support
Do you
sanctuary
feel the
jurisdiction.
outrage about Alex
should be
Freddie and
ashamed
Renee
of
Good?
yourself.
You should be
You should be ashamed
You don't
of
belong in
yourself,
this committee. You
Jamie.
should get the hell
You're a
out of here.
disgrace.
You don't understand the
You're
rules
a
of the committee.
disgrace.
You don't understand the Constitution.
You're a
Mr.
disgrace.
Full of
Raskin,
it.
Mr.
You're an
Raskin,
absolutely full of
absolute
it.
disgrace
Mr. Raskin,
supporting
get a hold of
sanctuary
yourself.
Say
policies.
one word about
Get
it.
rid of
Say one
sanctuary
word about
policies.
Alex Freddie and
I
Renee
did.
Good.
I
Oh,
wrote a
really?
whole New York Times op-ed about it. You should be
Okay, then
absolutely
follow the
ashamed of
rules of the
yourself
committee. Get out of
for
here.
not
The committee will
opposing
be-
sanctuary policies that resulted in their daughter's death.
The committee will be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I
We're
just
going
want to
to-
say we will not allow, thanks to Mr. Lawler's outrageous outburst, we will not allow this to happen again. This
We
was an
will-
agreement
we
between
will
the
proceed.
chair and the ranking member, and unfortunately, you're not able to
We will
control your
proceed.
members, so it is time for us to proceed.
Your opening
We will
statement was
proceed.
outrageous.
We
You
will
should be ashamed of
proceed in
yourself.
order.
I yield back.
Get off of it.
Let's try to conduct ourselves in a civil manner.
Boy, when I tell you, these people act like they in fucking high school. Now I understand why the country messed up. Because of these motherfuckers. These people act like they in goddamn high school. It is not that damn hard. It is not. You brought up Alex Freddie and Renee Good first, ma'am. Then you stated that you wanted to talk about birthright citizenship and Medicare and all of this outside of the committee. You stated that the committee should be focused on corruption, healthcare, and affordability. In a committee hearing that is for and based off of sanctuary city policies. You did this, ma'am, and now you're going to turn around and get mad that it's being thrown right back at you when you brought them up. You brought them up. This was a committee hearing about sanctuary city policies. This had nothing to do with what happened to Renee Good or Alex Freddie. But you brought it up, ma'am. And then you wanted it to sit there and lecture the committee about how they should be focusing on corruption and affordability and healthcare. You did that, ma'am. You did.
That to your member, Mr. Chairman.
We have two other introductions to make, which I think will go a little more smoothly. One is Ms. Sarah Pierce, who's the Director of Social Policy at Third Way. She previously worked at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and has served as Senior Counsel for the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. Ms. Pierce has a bachelor's degree from Grinnell College, a master's degree from the Elliott School of International Affairs, and a law degree from the University of Iowa College of Law. And finally, we have Sheriff Gary Redmond, who's been the sheriff of Amador County, California since 2021. He's a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. Sheriff Redmond's career includes service with the Los Angeles Police Department and nearly 3 decades with the Amador County Sheriff's Office. He's a graduate of the Sherman Block Supervisory Leadership Institute and the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy held in Quantico, Virginia. On a personal note, I'll add that Sheriff Redmond has been a leading advocate in California to sound the alarm over California sanctuary laws, as we'll hear. Sheriff Redmond and many of his fellow sheriffs want desperately to cooperate and coordinate with ICE, but are forbidden from doing so by state law. With those introductions, we'll now welcome our witnesses, thank them for appearing today, and we'll begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record reflect the witnesses who have answered in the affirmative. Please be seated. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes, and we'll begin with Mr. Abraham.
Chairman, ranking members, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. For most Americans, January 19th, 2025 was just an ordinary day. For my family, it was a day that our lives were permanently altered. That night, my 20-year-old daughter, Katie, was riding with friends in Urbana, Illinois, visiting University of Illinois friends going to that college. The vehicle was stopped at a red light. They were exactly where they were supposed to be. They were obeying laws and posed a danger to no one. In a matter of seconds, an intoxicated illegal immigrant driving nearly 80 miles an hour crashed into the back of their idle vehicle. Katie was killed. Another young woman was killed. 3 other young people suffered serious injuries. My daughter's future ended in that intersection. Katie was bright, compassionate, athletic, and deeply loved. Today, instead of watching her graduate from college this year, begin a career, build a family of her own, we visit and tend to her grave. The individual responsible, Julio Cucabol, a Guatemalan national who was previously deported and re-entered illegally in the United States in 2022. After the crash, he fled, leaving the death and destruction behind him, but was later apprehended in Texas.
With base 44, a simple sentence becomes your website.
I'm not gonna lie. No wonder why this country is screwed up.
Page after page.
No wonder why we're going through the things that we're going through right now. It ain't Donald Trump, it's these foolish ass people in office.
As devastating as Katie's death is, what brings me here before Congress is not what happened that night. It's everything that happened before it. A previously deported individual illegally returned to the United States, remained here, obtained an Illinois driver's license, and ultimately killed 2 women. Those are not my opinions, those are facts. During court proceedings, Bull testified through an interpreter that he could not read, write, or speak English or Spanish. He communicated primarily with Kaichi, an indigenous Mayan Guatemalan language. Imagine the struggles of translators there. Yet he was issued a valid Illinois driver's license, which raises serious questions. How was competency evaluated? Whether public safety was even a concern. Any protocols followed. Accountability cannot change what happened to Katie. Prevent similar tragedies. My parents came to America legally more than 60 years ago from a developing country. Like millions of lawful immigrants, they believed America was a nation governed by laws rather than political convenience. They respected the process because they respected the country. They taught me citizenship carries obligations. The laws exist for a reason, and that government has fundamental responsibilities to the people it serves. When government fails in that responsibilities, real people bear the consequences. My daughter was one of them. The central question before this committee, to me, is straightforward. Did failures in immigration enforcement, government coordination, public policy increase preventable risks to American citizens? These are not partisan questions. They are oversight questions. They are public safety questions. Too often, immigration debates become about systems and policies while victims fade into the background. Katie was not a statistic. She was my daughter. She should still be alive today. Congress can't undo what happened to Katie, but it can examine what failed. Demand transparency from government agencies and public officials. Insist that policies be judged not by their intentions, by their outcomes. Katie lost her future January 19th, 2025. My family lost ours with her. I ask this committee to demand full transparency, identify the failures that allowed a previously deported individual to illegally return, remain in this country, obtain a driver's license, and ultimately kill 2 young women. Hold government accountable, strengthen coordination between federal, state, and local authorities, and judge every policy by one simple question. Would this better protect the next American stopped at a red light? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll next hear from Ms. Pierce.
Chairman McClintock, Ranking Member Jayapal, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to start by saying, Mr. Abraham and Mrs. Gorman, I'm incredibly sorry for your losses. No one should suffer like your families have suffered, and I honor and admire your bravery in being here today. My name is Sarah Pierce. I'm Director of Social Policy at Third Way. Third Way has a long history of saying things that both Democrats and Republicans dislike, so let me start there. The Biden administration's border policies were inexcusable. The Trump administration's interior enforcement policies are also inexcusable. My testimony today focuses on why. I have 3 main points. First, sanctuary policies do not prevent ICE from enforcing federal law. Every jurisdiction, including self-proclaimed sanctuaries, participates in immigration enforcement. When someone is booked, fingerprints are checked against federal databases, and ICE has access to that. ICE has federal authority, agents, databases, and now extraordinary funding. $113.5 billion in supplemental funding through 2029. This is more than the combined operating budgets of every local law enforcement jurisdiction in America. Meanwhile, state and local law enforcement are starved for resources. 3/4 of local police departments have fewer than 25 officers. They handle crime.
Yeah, but that's not the Trump administration's fault. That's your favorite Democrat Party who've been advocating for defunding the police. That's why they have limited resources. Tell your local government to stop advocating for defunding the police like they do in Chicago all the damn time. That's where your limited resources are. Why you have limited resources, you have state and local governments over here defunding the police and advocating for defunding the police, and they have been doing this for years. So if you want to sit there and talk about the $113 billion that's about to go into federal ICE and complain about that, that has nothing to do with why your local police officers have limited resources. Look at the local leadership and blame that on them, because they have been advocating for defunding the police. That is a documented fact.
Overdoses, sensitive community calls, asking them to absorb federal duties pulls them away from their local obligations. The focus should be on how cooperation can advance public safety and support local policing. Second, this administration is making cooperation harder, not easier. Local jurisdictions need to trust federal partners before they lend them local resources. Yet this administration has treated skeptical jurisdictions as adversaries to be punished, not partners to be persuaded. This administration has threatened funding, filed lawsuits, and accused entire jurisdictions of protecting criminals. ICE's tactics.
Because you prohibited, you have several different states and different cities that have prohibited local law enforcement from working with federal ICE. And if they had not done that, you wouldn't have this problem.
Tactics have deepened this trust deficit. The public cannot distinguish between police and ICE, especially when ICE is wearing police markings. When federal operations are chaotic, abusive, or deadly, local police are left to repair the damage. Third, this administration's own decisions are making Americans more vulnerable to crime. Federal law enforcement are abandoning serious work in favor of immigration enforcement. In San Francisco, federal drug dealing prosecutions fell by more than half after federal agents were redirected to immigration enforcement. In Minnesota, Hennepin County's top prosecutor said federal agents were bringing criminal cases to her because they were too busy with immigration work. In addition, tens of thousands of federal agents with specialized experience in child exploitation, human trafficking, arms trafficking, and violent crime have been diverted from their primary public safety missions to instead focus on immigration enforcement. That's especially dangerous for child exploitation cases, which require specialized resources and personnel. When those agents get reassigned.
But you advocate for defunding the police. How are you blaming Trump for you sitting there advocating and defunding the police, and when some of these doggone cities did actually do that, and then turn around and blame the lack of resources for police officers on federal immigration? You already had limited resources to begin with because you're too busy advocating for defunding the damn police. During 2023, Chicago police officers lost over 2,000 police officers. That was not due to federal immigration. That was not due to federal immigration whatsoever. You had the mayor of Chicago basically shut down shots fired. In order to turn around and create funding for illegal immigrants, in order to fund his sanctuary policies.
Children wait longer to be found, and predators get more time to harm them. The Department of Justice is also weakening public safety infrastructure by delaying and canceling grants. Each year, the Department of Justice grants billions for police hiring, prosecutors, and victim services across the United States. Congress provided more than $4.5 billion for fiscal year 2025 grants from the Department of Justice's Office of Justice Programs. But now, 9 months later, less than half of that has gone out the door. Notably,
you know what? Bro, all of this can be afforded. The only thing you have to do, Trump is a negotiator. All right, give me federal funding of $10 billion for my police department, and I will work with federal ICE. That's with ICE agents. That's all you got to do. But instead, you sitting there arguing, doing a goddamn congressional committee hearing. All you have to do is talk to Trump, who is the current president. That man is most likely going to work with you. He is a negotiator. That's how most businessmen move. They negotiate. Give me $10 billion and I will allow local law enforcement, the same local law enforcement that I'm going to hire, to basically give you access to their jail cells. That's all you have to do. This shit is easy. It's easy. As I said before, Trump is a negotiator. That's how most businessmen move in the first place. Give me about $5 to $10 billion. I will hire local police officers. And if you allow me to do that, I will also allow them to work with local law enforcement, and I will give you access to the jail cells. But you guys are refusing to do that because you want to do political grandstanding instead of actually doing the goddamn work. You want to turn around and race hustle instead of actually doing the goddamn work. Stupid. And look at where stupid got you. Now you sitting there about to blame everything that is happening right now on Trump and the administration when this shit was caused by you and your political grandstanding.
For the majority on this committee, the states you represent are missing $163 million in congressionally authorized public safety funding from last year. That money still has not gone out to Alabama, Arizona, California, Kansas, Missouri, New Jersey, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Wisconsin. The administration has also terminated more.
And guess what? States are still thriving. Except for California, because all their businesses is leaving due to high taxes. That's because some of these states, unlike y'all states, practice fiscal responsibility.
More than $820 million in public safety grants, cutting initiatives on rural crime, officer safety and wellness, anti-terrorism training, and more than half of federal gun violence prevention funding. For grants that are going out,
She said anti-terrorism. What the fuck do you think ICE was created for? To combat terrorism. I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this again. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, not only deals with transnational threats, but also deals with federal immigration as well, too. How do sex trafficking and drug trafficking get into the country? Immigration, the border. How does drug trafficking get into the country? The border. All of that consists of federal immigration, which not only does it make our communities safer, it reduces the crime of drug use and violent crimes in the country.
new ideological conditions related to political priorities like vaccines, gender ideology, and protection of public monuments are discouraging applicants from even applying. I urge this subcommittee to broaden its oversight and stop treating sanctuary fights as a substitute for all public safety oversight. Demand a course correction, restore the grants to your own states. Stop diverting specialized agents from serious crime and rebuild trust that local law enforcement need. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll next hear from Sheriff Redmond.
Listen, all I gotta say is that I pray and hope that if I ever become president, y'all are not this doggone weak-ass Senate.
What does the rise of AI mean for your career? Technology is changing fast. Industries from healthcare to finance.
Listen, I'm going to just say this. I hope that if I ever become president of the United States of America, that I don't have to deal with a weak-ass Senate like this. Now I understand why he does everything through executive order, because this don't make no damn sense. This is retarded as I don't know what. Retarded. This is retarded as I don't know what. Super retarded and super weak. And I just pray to God that the Senate becomes stronger by the time my ass become the president. Because if they don't, I'm probably going to have to do almost everything through executive order in order to even get anything done. This is a damn shame. This is a damn shame. Y'all supposed to be leaders of a country, and here it is, y'all ain't showing nothing but straight up weakness. That's it. Y'all supposed to be leaders of the free world, and all I see right now is blood because of weakness that has been shown throughout this entire doggone congressional hearing. All I see is blood. Because all I see is nothing but straight up weakness throughout the Senate. This is a damn shame. And you got people in the Republican Party wanting to grant these people amnesty, wanting to grant illegal immigrants amnesty. If this is not the weakest Senate I've ever seen in my goddamn life, I don't know what is. Y'all need to take y'all asses back to the goddamn 90s, where it seemed like y'all was about that life. Because this right here, this always sitting there talking about race, sitting there talking about, keep on playing it. Just keep
Distinguished
on
members of
playing
the committee, today I would like to share my perspective on the impacts illegal immigration has had on a small rural county such as Amador. Located in California's Gold Country east of Sacramento, Amador covers 594 square miles and is served by just 54 sworn deputies and approximately 40 correctional deputies. Providing public safety services across such a large geographic area presents unique challenges. From 1999 through 2015, I served 8 years as a SWAT operator and another 8 years as the SWAT team leader responsible for high-risk search warrants and tactical operations. During that time, many large-scale illegal marijuana cultivation operations in Amador and neighboring counties were controlled by the Mexican drug cartels. These organizations frequently utilized individuals who had been smuggled into the United States to work at cultivation sites. Many of these individuals were armed and on occasion have engaged law enforcement officers. These operations pose significant risks not only to law enforcement personnel, but also to the public. Amador attracts more than 20,000 visitors annually to its streams, rivers, lakes, hiking trails, and campgrounds. Hikers and outdoor enthusiasts have encountered illegal cultivation sites and armed individuals. Cartels also smuggled banned pesticides into the region, causing substantial environmental damage and harming local wildlife. Between 2015 and 2025, Amador County investigated 73 illegal marijuana cultivation operations involving individuals to be believed unlawfully present in the United States. Arrest or charges resulting from those investigations include 173 individuals, Asian origin, persons from China, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, 53 Mexican nationals, 1 Venezuelan national, 2 Ukrainian nationals, 2 South African nationals, and 1 Guatemalan national. Since President Trump returned to office and federal immigration enforcement priorities have changed, we have cooperated with ICE to the fullest extent permitted under California's SB 54 sanctuary law. As sheriff, my highest priority is protecting public safety. In early 2025, I made the decision that I would not knowingly release an undocumented criminal offender who posed a significant public safety risk back into the community, even if doing so placed me at odds with SB 54. On September 2nd, 2024, my office received a report involving a 14-year-old girl who disclosed to her cousin that her uncle, Diaz Mendoza, age 48, had been touching her over her clothing in the vaginal area. A deputy responded to the lake where she was present, interviewed the visibly distraught victim. She reported the abuse had been occurring for approximately 5 months outside of Amador County. My deputy interviewed the suspect and established probable cause to arrest him for felony lewd acts involving a minor. 2 days later, the suspect appeared in court and was released by the judge. In 2025, I was informed by our probation department that Diaz Mendoza had entered into a plea agreement negotiated by an Amador County deputy district attorney. The agreement reduced the case to a misdemeanor offense with credit time served and suspended probation sentence. I was advised that the plea agreement was structured, at least in part, because of my publicly stated position regarding cooperation with ICE and the likelihood that ICE would be notified upon his release. Upon learning of the plea agreement, I immediately contacted ICE and requested the agents take him into custody upon his release from court. Due to the limited notice, ICE was unable to respond that day. However, agents did locate and arrest him approximately 2 weeks later. We subsequently informed the victim and her mother, both of whom expressed appreciation for our efforts and relief that he would no longer have access to this 14-year-old victim. Since 2025, I have contacted ICE 8 times regarding removals authorized under SB 54 within my jail. Additionally, under SB 54, I have been required to release 16 individuals arrested for low-level offenses that did not meet the requirements of SB 54. My greatest concern as sheriff is that one of these individuals may reoffend and cause another preventable tragedy, such as Lincoln Riley and the people that are here with me to my right and my left. Preventable. In my view, public policy should prioritize accountability for criminal offenders, protection for victims, and the safety of law-abiding citizens. I believe it is long overdue that we place greater emphasis on victims' rights, hold offenders accountable, and ensure that public safety remains our highest priority. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Sheriff. And finally, we'll hear from Mrs. Gorman.
My name is Jessica Gorman.
Can you turn on your microphone?
Hi, my name is Sheridan Gorman. I'm sorry. My name is Jessica Gorman. I'm the mother of Sheridan Grace Gorman. Sheridan was 18 years old. She was a freshman at Loyola University, Chicago. She was beautiful. She was funny, faithful, loving, full of plans to build something with her life. On March 19th, Sheridan went with friends to the lakefront in Chicago because they hoped they might see the northern lights. She never saw those lights. The man accused of murdering my daughter is Jose Medina, an illegal immigrant from Venezuela who should not have even been in this country. And even after committing a crime and having an outstanding warrant, he was left on the streets of Chicago to murder my innocent American child. But this story, it's not about him. This story is about my Sheridan. It's about how failed border policies, sanctuary city laws, and twisted leaders refused to cooperate with ICE. They sent her to her grave. It's about a government and politicians that forgot their first priority. And the question before this committee is painfully simple. When did protecting our American citizens stop being your first priority? And even more important, why did protecting our American citizens stop being your first priority? I want an explanation, I need one, and I deserve one. But first, I want you to know who my Sheridan was. I want you to understand what we all lost because of your mismatched priorities. My husband and I have always joked that our older daughter, Madeline, is our pride. Well, Sheridan was our joy. From the moment she was born, Sheridan was pure energy, enthusiasm, laughter, fun. She was the kind of person who made every room brighter and usually a little louder. Which is why when Sheridan was in kindergarten, I remember going to her first parent-teacher conference. I was a little nervous because while she was the sweetest little girl you could possibly imagine, she was also the chattiest. I remember sitting down across from her teacher, bracing myself and asking with bated breath, "So, how's my Sheridan?" I'll never forget when the teacher looked at me very seriously and said, "I only have one thing to say to you." Oh, my stomach dropped. Then she said, "Your Sheridan stalks the buddy bench." I remember blinking at her. I'm sorry, what? She said, your Sheridan stocks the buddy bench. I was totally confused and I asked, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And what exactly is a buddy bench? And the teacher smiled and said, it's a beautiful thing. She explained that they had a bench in the play yard. She said that not all kids are as outgoing and confident as your Sheridan. So the children were told that if they wanted to play or if they felt lonely, left out, shy, they could sit on that bench. And then the other children were told that if they saw someone sitting there, they should go over, talk to them, ask them to play. And apparently Sheridan, my tiny kindergartner, had appointed herself the guardian of that bench. Every day at recess, instead of heading straight to the swings or joining in a game of kickball, my daughter hung back and hovered by the nearby tree, just watching that bench, just waiting, just in case someone might need her. The kids didn't even have a chance to fully sit down on the bench before Sheridan was rushing over to take them, to take their hand, pull them away. Girls, boys, first graders, kindergartners, it really didn't matter to her. If a child looked lonely, Sheridan went over. If someone had no one to play with, Sheridan was there. If someone felt invisible, Sheridan saw them. That was my daughter, and that is who she was until the day she was stolen from us. And I honestly can't make sense of it. I cannot make peace with it. And in what world does the child who spent her life making sure no one was lonely die terrified and alone on a pier in Chicago? In what world does the girl who saw everyone become invisible to the people in power responsible for protecting her? This cannot be explained away, and it cannot be buried beneath a list of unrelated issues that you all paraded before us. Thanks for telling me without telling me that, you're here, but you don't want to be. This is the fourth time you had angel families. Thanks for telling me you don't care. This cannot be buried under your slogans, your statistics or excuses, and this just can't stand. So today, I bring this back to the buddy bench. I think Congress needs one. I think every governor, every mayor, every sanctuary city official and politician shifting blame and interest, hiding behind their slogans and talking points should have to all sit on one. And I challenge you all to sit down with me, take my hand, look me in the eye, and then explain to me, because I just don't understand. Explain why people here illegally matter more than your American citizens. Explain why sanctuary policies matter more than my Sheridan's life. Explain why cooperation with ICE was too much to ask for, but asking our American parents to bury our children is somehow acceptable. Ask me, I need you to tell me. I want you to imagine that little girl on the buddy bench, that innocent college freshman with a heart full of compassion and a head full of dreams that was gunned down by an illegal immigrant. I want you to imagine that was your daughter, not mine. What if she was yours? Would you even hesitate for 1 second to act, to make changes? My Sheridan spent her whole life choosing others. Today, I'm just asking this committee in our Congress, in our country, to choose her. She was worth protecting. She was worth saving. And she was worth your brave vote. To all of those who have supported us, who have prayed for us, who have cried with us, and to those who have had the courage to speak out and say Sheridan's name, thank you. Because every time you say her name, you give a piece of her back to us. You remind the world that Sheridan was not a talking point. She wasn't a statistic or a headline. She was our daughter. She will always be my sweet sunshine. And if the people who failed her would rather look away, then I'm asking the rest of you to look right at her. Here she is. There's she and I. Here she is. This is taken the day before she died. Say her name, tell her story, and demand better. Because my Sheridan Grace Gorman should still be alive. And no mother should have to stand where I am standing, begging elected leaders to value my child's life after it's already too late. I cried when I came into the room that you made. It says at every stop, the system had a chance to stop him. At every step, it failed. And my daughter paid for those failures, your failures, with her life. No family should ever have to bury a child because public officials fail to put American lives first. I'm just asking you to choose us. We choose you. We choose you. Choose us. Why does my child matter less than an illegal immigrant? Why? Listen, I have a heart. I love immigrants. Two of my best friends in this whole world are immigrants. They came here the right way. I absolutely think they make America beautiful. But my daughter's beautiful too. I need you to think about what these policies are. And I need you to imagine this is your daughter, because I'm very sure you won't be cutting off anyone when they're speaking. I'd be very sure you won't call this a political stunt. The grief is real. Every day I wake up with unimaginable pain. Do you know what I wake up in the middle of the night and I think, did my daughter cry for me? She made it 40 feet. She made it 40 feet running for her life. Did she cry out for me? She died on that pavement all by herself, lonely, bleeding on that pavement. And I will never ever rest. I actually have to say that I am devastated. My husband and I, we're only a couple years away from retirement. I've worked my whole life so hard. All I wanted to do was just enjoy our children. Just wanted to enjoy my Sheridan, my Madeline. And now I'm bitter. I'm bitter because I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a lover. I love children. I love pumping people up and making them feel good about themselves. I'm not racist. I'm not xenophobic. We've done everything right, my husband and I. We taught our daughter to be wonderful, beautiful person. Her love was extravagant. And now I'm going to have to spend my last waking moment, I'm going to have to spend fighting against these policies, fighting for people to say her name. So if you have the courage, please come talk to me. Come sit on that bench. I'll buy Congress a bench. Talk to each other. Talk to each other. We shouldn't be screaming across the room. I mean, we also shouldn't say but, because I have to just say, and I understand that you're here for a reason. I don't understand why it's only the Republican side that cares about our American children. And I know that you're a mother. I know that you're a father. I deeply value that. But basically what you just did, what you said was, I'm so sorry for your loss. I have a daughter too. I have a son. I feel your pain. You don't feel my pain, because the next words out of your mouth were, but. There's no but. When your child is in a coffin, there's no but. And I need you to understand that. And if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. I'm going to buy you a bench. You can put that on the record. I'm going to buy Congress a bench. And they can come and sit and hold my hand and look me in the eye and explain to me why illegal immigrants are more important than my daughter. I really want to know, because I don't understand. Please, I welcome you. I will listen. I will listen. I care. I just need you to explain it to me, because I don't, and I fear I will never understand. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
And so, you see, now you heard that. But
hey man, what's the best advice
that's
you can
all
give
for the
someone
night,
that's in?
guys. That's literally all for the night, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe at Black Diamond 31. Peace.